can you give me a really like 10,000 foot view of what is disability insurance and why do we talk about it, especially to people who are just getting started, I'd say below the age of 50?
I think disability insurance is way under talked about. I think it's a lot more important than people give it. Because it covers your ability to make money. So if you cannot make money, then you're insuring that. You're insuring your ability to make money with disability insurance. You can get short-term disability insurance or you can get long-term disability insurance. But if someone has done what we just talked about with the emergency fund and have 3 to 6 months, then that should take care of their short-term disability needs.
Yeah, then you don't really
You don't
need
need it.
you don't really need it.
You don't need to pay for the premium of something that you can cover yourself. But long-term disability, that's the number one cause of bankruptcy in America. Is people lose their long-term ability to earn money. And so then you have to go on disability. And if you've seen a disability check lately, they're not much.
And it's extremely hard to get on.
Yes, you're have to be disabled for 2 years before you're going to apply. And the average application attempts, I think, is the third one is when you usually get accepted.
Yeah, and there are a lot more, the requirements to get on government disability are a lot more stringent than they are to get a disability check from the insurance carrier that you already have insurance through.
Yes. So a long-term disability plan would typically have a 60 or 90-day wait. Maybe you can get it longer if you have a larger emergency fund, but they're not going to cover you, not going to pay you anything until you're disabled for more than that. So about that time, your emergency fund's looking pretty low. Even if you had 9 months of emergency fund, you've just lost 3 months of it. So it's looking pretty low, and then your insurance kicks in. And I'd say the base policy pays you about 66% of your
60,
salary,
I'd say 60% up to 66.67.
but you can add to that, get
Yeah,
supplemental.
yeah, absolutely. And I think most people should, unless there's a specific reason that you can think of why you shouldn't. If you already have pre-existing conditions, disability insurance is actually one of the more difficult insurances to get with more stringent underwriting. So if you have some type of chronic illness, a lot of times they won't cover you. And the reason that it's so stringent to get on and so hard to get on is because the the cost to the insurance company, if you go on claim, if you claim that insurance benefit, is extremely high. you know, they don't want to cover someone who paid, say you've paid $2,000 into the policy over the course of just 2 years. Let's say you paid $1,000 a year, and then they're going to have to pay you what, probably over $1,000 a month potentially until you're 65, or some policies will even go to 70. And so, say you got that disability policy at 20, 21, 22, whenever you got out of college, and then you became disabled at 25, they're having to pay 40 years of income replacement. That is extremely expensive for the insurance company, and so they price that into those policies. Now, I would say obviously if your work offers it, get it through your work first, up to that 60%. It's going to be cheaper. Group policies are really cheap, and there's no underwriting usually to get on them. And then you want to have a supplemental policy on top of that, to cover, hopefully to get up to that 80 to 90% range. They're not going to cover you 100% because they want to give you some incentive to go back to work.
So you want to get a little bit into the weeds there? Because these disability policies also, some of them don't cover you to age 65. Some of them only
Mm-hmm.
cover you for 5 years or two and a
Mm-hmm.
half years or a certain time period. And in that, by the end of that time period, you have to get a job. Either they'll specify either in your own type of occupation or in another type of occupation. So you've got to look at the details of what kind of policy you're getting. Because you could be let's say you're a doctor and you're disabled, and if the type of disability policy you get may say, well, as long as you can get a job somewhere, they won't cover you anymore.
Yeah, no, you really want to have your true occupation if you're in a specialty field like that. And so, and it's expensive. I mean, we won't lie. It's not cheap to get coverage like that. But especially if you're in a high earning environment like a doctor, that coverage becomes intensely important because being a doctor or a surgeon is not the same job as being a teacher or janitor or anything else. Vast income disparity there. And so the skills that you have, especially those fine motor skills with your hands, are really difficult to find elsewhere if you find that you can't use your hands or something happens. And I think also a quarter of all people are around that amount of time, about around that percentage, quarter of people will at some point in their life have some sort of disability that requires them to step away from work for a little bit, typically around 2 years. And so you're covering something that is also not that unlikely.
Now, I know we're doing mostly basic finances here, but there's also disability policies for business owners.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get it on the personal level, so it can cover your personal expenses, and you can also get one for your business to cover your business expenses while you're out.
Yeah. Yeah. To cover the overhead. And then this is, you mentioned it, and so I just want to talk about it now.
We can go down that rabbit hole a little bit.
Yeah. But also, the main reasons that a business owner will sell is death, disagreement, divorce, and disinterest. And so, disability being one of those reasons, there are disability policies that you can get to where if the business owner became disabled for whatever reasons, and say there's partners, that disability can trigger a buy-sell agreement, and so the other partners can buy that person out because they became disabled, and so that's kind of an option, and that's that goes really kind of beyond the scope of what we were going to talk about here, but that is some business owner planning that will help some individuals and business owners do.
Well, we don't want to make it sound too simple, too plain, so someone just goes and their employer offers a disability plan, they just get the first one available. And you do have to look at it, you do have to see what it offers, and if you need help with that, you can call somebody like us and they can look at it and help make sure you get the one that's right for you. So it's not as simple as just any disability policy out there is good, so get it. You do have to be a little careful and do a little research.